Benchmark testing. So how we can perform this testing using JMeter and why this testing is so much important if we talk about performance testing. So all those stuff including the practical demo on using JMeter, that how we can perform benchmark performance testing using the JMeter. So all those things we are going to see in today's video. So without wasting much time, let's get started. So this is chapter 8. So that means there are previous chapters that we have covered in the series of performance testing. So if you're new to this video, consider subscribing to our channel first of all, and like this video if you like the content. Then if you have a specific video request, then you can mention it in the comment. And if you want to watch the previous video of performance testing that we did or that we have made on our channel, so you can just click on the I button over here, or you can check out the links that I'll be making sure to add in the description box. So let's start with today's content. So first of all, before we start the practical demo, it's good to know about some theoretical stuff as always. So let's see what is benchmark testing. So benchmark performance testing is type of performance testing where, let's say, a baseline, as the name suggests, or the reference point of the certain test that is established for, let's say, how your system behaves or performs under a specific set of conditions. So let's say for an example like load testing or stress testing or regression or endurance testing, so all this testing will be measured with some baseline, and those are the readings that will be always compared whenever we perform performance testing for, let's say, whenever new release of our application is going to be live. So that's nothing much the benchmark testing, and performing this benchmark testing is really important because it sets the baseline of your app that must be met, for next releases. And that's why benchmark testing is very important for your application, and especially if you're performing the performance testing, it's very crucial to benchmark your applications, because we can compare with our competitors. We can show it to our clients that we are better in such parameters compared to our clients, or we can utilize those ratings to have changes to measure the changes of our applications. So that's why benchmark test performance testing is really important. So if we look at the development cycle or app timeline and deployment and testing, so this is the kind of a graph that I have made. This is not the useful graph, but it's good to know the timeline and what are the timelines that and whenever we perform performance testing or let's say benchmark testing, so where all this testing falls in compared to the app timeline. So let's say we are in the requirement gathering phase. So as we progress through the x-axis, so that is as app timeline, so first deployment is going to be at certain x-axis, x coordinate, which is greater than 0. So let's say at x is equal to 0, we are in the requirement gathering phase. So in this phase, before we deploy the first deployment of the app, first version of the app, so there will be some requirement gathering phase, and during this phase there are certain conditions, certain things that we must gather, like theoretical values for our performance testing parameters, or performance key parameter indexes, like let's say if you consider response time, latency, so those are key performance matrices. So we gather theoretical values, or we gather those values inside the requirements through our client interaction, or let's say there are certain competitors that are already available in our market, so we use the data that are already benchmarked by our clients, our competitors. And then also we include some of the online data, that what should be the ideal values. So all of these values are gathered before we perform our first performance testing. Then let's say if the development of our app and is completed for the development environment, before we move to the prod or before we move to the first deployment, it's good to perform the performance testing. So if there are certain hurdles that might need to get resolved, so those will be revolved or revealed during this performance testing. Then after, let's say, we performed our first performance testing, we can compare our results or analyze those results against the value that we have gathered using this phase. so where we have theoretical values, requirements, competitor analysis, or online data. So we measure or we compare all of those results with the performance testing that we have did. And now it is not recommended, but usually we perform the benchmark testing, and that's why I have written maybe. So before we move to the first deployment, we might perform the benchmark testing, and it is usually performed after the first performance testing. And then let's say now we have first deployment. So now what we do is we benchmark the results that we have gathered during this phase, during this first deployment cycle. And then let's say wherever we have subsequent or major infra changes or major software changes, we usually do performance testing and benchmark testing before and after all of these changes that we might face. And the results that we have benchmarked during this first deployment, those all the results will be compared during all these testing phases. So that's how the app timeline and this benchmark and performance testing falls under the app timeline. Now benchmark testing is really simple. What you need to do is you need to just create one user, and let's say there are certain sample of requests. Also, let's say we can have 100 requests, and that will be done for per endpoint, which means per pages we will be using one user and certain amount of request. And this usually falls, so the industry standard is to have a minimum of 100 requests and maximum of 500 requests. So those many requests are useful to have a average to benchmark basically the response time and latency and certain parameters like that. So as always, I have the terminal setup ready. This is not recommended. Again, I keep saying this in every video so that you remember that this terminal setup is not recommended. It's just for me to ease my work. So from here I have opened this JMeter application, and this is the load testing demo that we have created for the previous videos or previous tests that we have demonstrated. So if you are if you have not watched that video, I might give you a link in the I button, or you can check out the link for the link in the description box. So now moving forward to the setup. So it's basically just you can just reuse the template that we have created for the load testing. So now this is the project. Again, this is the tic-tac-toe project that I have hosted on the GitHub. You can take this URL, or you can keep your personal URL that you might want to perform the test on, right? So now we can change the name. We can first of all change the file. So save test plan as, and under the test plans by Hanil folder, wherever you want basically. So we are creating all the test files. We are saving all the test files under this test plans by Hanil folder. So now we will save this file as, let's say, benchmark testing. Okay, demo. Now we can save this. So now we have benchmark testing demo open. We can go ahead and change the name. So for the test plan, we can change the name from GitHub pages distributed load test. So we can GitHub pages benchmark test, right? Now go to home page, it will remain same, but we will dump down the user from 2K to 1. Now our MPOP period, we will keep it as 5 seconds. Now make sure to check this loop count. So ideally, so as we have said, so we will take some amount of samples, X samples, so that we have seen in the last slide, right? So here, let's say we will have 100 requests thrown for the page. So we will make sure to keep the loop count to whatever amount of requests that you want to keep for your benchmark test. So let's say we want to keep the 100 requests. Now testing period will be 60 seconds. Now again, let's say if your page is taking some more amount of time to load, so make sure to keep the duration accordingly so that you have an opportunity to all those 100 requests can be completed, because all those 100 requests will be performed sequentially as you have just the one number of so the number of user is 1. So basically all those 100 requests will be performed sequentially. So make sure to keep this value higher, so that all those 100 requests can be completed within this test duration. Because what will happen is, if let's say 10 request is completed during the 60 seconds, so after that all those requests won't be executed, because duration means, if let's say so the test cycle for this JMeter will be let's say until the duration is expired, the test duration is expired, or all of the request is completed. So if let's say all of your requests are not completed but the test duration is expired, or let's say test duration is over, then all of those requests will not be thrown. So make sure to have some value. So let's say we will keep the duration 20 minutes. So 20 minutes converted into seconds, that means 1200 seconds, and we will keep the startup delay as 5. So the thread group configuration is ready. Now what we will do is HTTP request default. So yeah, we have this learnings. Instead of that, what we will do is we will keep this gamez.github.io, right? We will keep this as HTTPS. Now inside the home page, what we will do is, yeah, so that is it. So for the path, as you can see, we have tic-tac-toe reloaded over here. So as that path we have also over here. Now for the assertion, we have this assertion which says it should have 2 buttons, start game and option. So yeah, that is the same thing that we have it over here. Now all of this are reports, so we make sure that we have the correct path. So all of the paths are pointing to reports load testing results. So what we will do is, we will go inside reports folder, and now we will go inside the demo folder here. Yeah, so you see we have the reports for the past test that we have performed, and we also have this temp folder. So what we will do is, we will go inside the temp folder and we will copy this path. So we can copy this path, copy, and we can paste it over here. Right? So we have our test setup completed. So if you go to the thread group, if you see, we have one user, we are ramping up within the 5 seconds, we have 100 requests, 100 samples you can say. So the test duration is 20 minutes. So if before the 20 minutes all of the requests are completed, the test will be over. Then we have request default. Inside we have configured the settings, our name, and then we are sending the request to the home page. We also have certain assertions to make sure that we are landing on the same page, and these are the reports that we are generating. We can hit the save button. Now from the terminal, what I can do is, I can just give the certain paths over here. So from the reports, I can go to demo and I can go to temp folder. Now the reports are generated. So the reports are basically will be generated inside this folder. Now what I will do is, I will run the test plan. So we have the test plan inside test plans by Hanil, and the file name is, if you see, it is benchmark testing demo. So yeah, that is the file name. We make sure that we don't have any test file, the output file that is generated from the previous test, and now we can just execute this file. Okay, so it seems the temp folder is not empty, and we should have the temp folder empty. So what we can do is, we can remove the temp folder. Okay, so we are inside the temp folder actually. So we can remove the temp folder and we can create another one. Now we can run the file again. So the test execution is started successfully, and we'll wait until the test is being performed. So if you see, the test is completed and we don't have any errors. And if we see So we can open the index file inside the temp folder. So if you see, these are the results, and we can see that for the home page, average load time, average response time is 24.02 milliseconds. That is very less, and that is you can consider it as a benchmark test. So what you can, for subsequent deployments of your app, let's say we change certain infrastructure or certain software code, so it's good to have this kind of result. So we can benchmark this value as an ideal or as a benchmark value, or we can have a certain error percentage, let's say plus or minus 100 milliseconds. So if for the next release, if the value is going beyond such values, let's say the average response time is 50 milliseconds or 1 second, or you can also see 1000 milliseconds. So that is something to worry about, because for the previous benchmarked value is 24 milliseconds. So that's why the benchmark testing is important. For this test, the graphs or the response time values and certain things are not actually important. So, and the important things that is to consider is response time and latency. So average response times, average latency, average throughput. So those all are the important things to be kept or to be measured. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you have got the idea about how we can perform the benchmark testing in JMeter, or you might have already got the idea about what is the importance of performing the benchmark testing and what is the importance of doing the performance testing. So yeah, that's the end of our performance testing series, and that's the end of this video also. We'll meet in the next video. Till then, keep learning and keep exploring.